$17 million a year, but opted to take less and signed for 3 years and $41 million because he believes he can win a championship there. And Eagles defensive tackle Jalen Carter says he's ready to be better than he was last season as a rookie. He's focused on conditioning this spring in the hopes of staying strong throughout 2024. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
From grown-worthy dad jokes to patching up skinned knees, your one-of-a-kind dad deserves a gift guaranteed to take him to his happy place. Show him the love with a gift as unforgettable as he is. Omaha Steaks. Order the deluxe Father's Day gift package at omahasteaks.com. 20 unforgettable entrees plus 4 free burgers for just $89.99 when you use promo code SIZZLE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Code SIZZLE at checkout.
Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you on a Monday, starting a new week here. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. We got Tony Dusink producing for us, calling the big guns today. Jad's out today. Get him back soon. The IHOP hotline is open, though, for you. Brought to you by IHOP. You can visit IHOP and try the new If movie-inspired menu flavors like Blue's Dazzleberry Junior Combo. Glad to be with you this week. Forgive my voice if it cracks a few times. We're on the mend here, Tommy. You messaged me, I don't know what, like a week ago, and you're like, man, my voice just is gone, and got through Friday, and then all of a sudden mine was out, and it's coming back. We're good, but forgive me if I get a little crack, if I'm a little prepubescent, if you will, as we make our way through this Monday edition. Tommy, how are you? How's the weekend?
Man, it was good. Long holiday weekend. One of those weekends where you kind of need a weekend from your weekend. You got so much going on, and it almost feels like I can actually take a little bit of a breather today because it was really busy. But it was good. And Memorial Day weekend in general for people, that unofficial start to summer. So I'm sure that a lot of things going on, and looking forward to getting back to it today.
It's interesting, too, because I think I said it's a Monday edition. It is not. It's a Tuesday edition, holiday weekend. It was fun. Pool time. I played golf for the first time, maybe the third time in the last 2 years.
How'd that go, by the way?
First time I finished 18 holes in even longer. It was good. We played a long round after a day at the pool. We really enjoyed ourselves yesterday. So it was a lot of sun. But I behaved myself for the most part, so it was good. It was fun. It was nice. I actually didn't play too bad. It was all right. I looked, it looked okay from my perspective, and it was fun. I had a good time. Hope everybody enjoyed the holiday weekend. The Royals, as we make our way through it today, probably didn't enjoy it as much because they're on a little 2-game skid for the first time in, I don't know, about a month that they've lost 2 games in a row. They'll try to get that bounced back tonight as they continue their series with Minnesota. We can get into that. Lots of other things. Massive, loss in the sports world. Bill Walton died over the weekend, which is, it kind of caught me off guard, but that is a mega personality, especially if you're a college basketball fan, for his later years and what he brought to the table. So certainly a sad day in the sports world for that. Lots of playoff action happening as well, Tommy. But it's sort of been Royals every day now, right? This is what we do. We watch the Royals. The Shockers gave us something to watch. Certainly over the weekend, they fall in the American Athletic Championship game, which was a seesaw battle. Man, they hung in there. They battled, and you just kind of ran out of arms there by the end, it seemed like, but they almost got it done. My goodness, how fun of a story would that have been if they are dancing. K-State is dancing. But it was a good sports weekend as well.
It was, baseball on a Memorial Day weekend is always a ton of fun. It feels kind of like a second opening day because you've got a bunch of teams playing and everybody is into it. And, like I mentioned before, it's kind of the kickoff to summer. And so everybody gets into it. It was fun to watch the Shockers run through the American tournament, and came up just slightly short of making a regional for the first time in over a decade. That's incredible. In year number 1 under Brian Green and a mix of returners and newcomers to this program, I think that the program is on pretty solid footing moving forward, and they showed a lot this year. Brian Green showed what he's got in getting this team together. It wasn't without some times of struggle, and it was an up and down year. But I do think that they've got that potential and that ability to build off of this season moving forward, and so I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know year 1. I think everybody would have been like, okay, good year 1. Let's see these young players and if they stick around. But that tournament run will almost make everything feel a whole lot more exciting, I think, going into next year. It wasn't a bad year, wasn't a great year. It was a year and you could see some progress and some growth. So it was sort of like a stepping stone year, it felt like. But man, then you see that tournament and it feels probably bigger. It almost built on or built up an entire regular season's body of work. So I think in a really good way, the timing on that tournament run was perfect. Now they've got to, get back to work this offseason. Get pitching as everybody always needs and hopefully be able to keep a lot of their young players. But yeah, the momentum there does appear to be positive, and it's amazing how a tournament run can help that momentum. So the Shocker baseball team doesn't quite get it done, but certainly gave us plenty to listen to. You, of course, heard them right here on KFH. Man, thanks for being here with us, by the way, on KFH on our live stream. Whether it's the audio live stream at kfhradio.com, whether it's our video live stream, which you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. Let's talk a little Royals here. We can get more into this on the other side. It's interesting, Tommy. We talk more and more about what they need in the lineup, and more they're scoring plenty of runs. I know they didn't on Saturday. What was that? No, Sunday. Sorry.
Sunday.
And then yesterday they were back to 5 runs, and it wasn't quite the pitching performance that you saw. Alec Marsh, that's probably his worst start of the year. 5 runs in 7 innings. He gave them the innings they needed. They did need the innings, so that was good, but not the start. I think the one, even in the loss to Tampa there, you got a good Waka start. Are you over concerns with Waka now? I mean, what is that? 4 or 5 straight? I'll take a look at the exact number, but he's grooving now. I mean, that's 4 straight quality starts. I think he's fine. I think he's good. And that's the first bad start for Alec Marsh. So I know it was 2 losses in a row, but I think the starting pitching is solidified, even sort of grooving a little better than it was.
I feel better about Michael Wacha than I did. I mean, he's dropped his ERA to 4.31. So that's good. It's trending down. He's trending better. Obviously would like to see that continue, because I'd like to see a sub 4 ERA from a guy that you signed a contract for to come over and be somebody that, and I know that the rotation has, sort of evolved into something different where Wacha doesn't need to be one of the aces in that rotation, but still, I mean, you brought him over, you signed him to a contract. You'd like to see a sub 4 ERA from him. So it's trending better. So I feel better about that. It's not just a one-off, performance. He's had several in a row that have been better for him. So yeah, I mean, as far as concerns are, talked about, I feel better overall about where he's at. Just need to see that continue and continue to drop that ERA down.
So Michael Massey now is hurt until he's out until June 4th. And that's too bad, because as teams across baseball have dealt with some pretty gnarly injury things this year, The Royals have not really dealt with much of that. Knock on wood. One of the big keys, I think, especially for a team like the Royals to be in the mix all year, is going to be staying healthy. Massey goes down. You're going to lose him until the 4th at least. It's a back, which is a little bit concerning because backs can linger a little bit. Now, as we look, and we're almost to that June 1st spot we've really been paying attention to as what the Royals need to do. I don't know what it does, but I do think at minimum it increases the urgency to add a bat, right? Because now Massey is, he was this nice revelation, but he's hurt now. Is that a lingering issue? Is he going to be dealing with the back all year long? Back strains. I mean, that stuff can nag you for a little while. So I think it probably does. I think they probably now have even more urgency to find a bat. I don't think it necessarily needs to be like an infielder to replace Massey, but I think at some point, at some place, they're going to have to get into the outfield even more now, maybe than they were a week ago.
I think that that's true. And I think that they've got, at least I would say that Adam Frazier is competent, at least. And in the 3 games that Frazier has started at second base, he's been okay offensively. He's not going to wow you by any means, but, he's there and can, step in, I think, at least until June 4th. If it was a longer injury, and maybe it is, and we don't know, because you did mention the back, and the back is kind of a fickle thing. But at least if it's only a June 4th, type injury for Michael Massey, I'm okay with Adam Frazier, stepping in. I think another positive in the middle of all of this is that a couple of those bats, at least in the outfield, that we've been pleading and begging to turn around, have started to do that. Nelson Velasquez has had a better couple of weeks or so, in his last 7 games, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. In his last 15 games, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs. He's not a guy that's going to hit for average. He's still, in the last week or two, batting somewhere around 230 over the last couple of weeks, but he's driving in runs when he needs to. And so that's been helpful. Hunter Renfroe, it seems like, is starting to come around a little bit too. So that's good. But I don't disagree with you. I think that the need remains the same today as it was a week or two ago, where you would like to have at least some kind of reinforcement offensively. And if that ends up being a guy that can be kind of versatile and can play in the middle infield and maybe even go out and play the outfield, and also has, some offensive prowess, I'm okay with that. And I'm not suggesting that it's this guy specifically, because I do think he's over the hill a little bit, but somebody who's got the versatility of a Whit Merrifield, who could play second base, but could also go out and play the outfield, and is also going to hit for average and get on base and do all those things. That would certainly be helpful for the Royals moving forward, not only at the trade deadline, but even in the next couple of weeks. I don't know if there's anybody that, is available out there on the trade block that you could maybe look at right away, but I certainly think it's something that's worth kicking the tires on.
And the reason I say it, the reason I bring that up, is because I think there was this, and I don't want to say narrative, it was real, like it is real. Like all of a sudden the Royals offense was really clicking, and it's like, well, maybe they don't need bat, right? And it wasn't in a short spurt. It was sustained. We had sustained periods against good pitching, by the way. And teams get hot. Look, I get it. And I think at the base level, you just don't want to waste the magic that has been this season. But there was this growing thing of like, well, maybe they don't need to go get a bat because they're scoring 5-6 runs a game right now. But I think that can be dangerous, because you still have to trust what you've seen over not just the course of the year, but like forever. And some of these, you just would like to have a little more firepower. Massey was making that a little less, so it felt like, because he was giving you production so, routinely at the bottom of the lineup, and some of these other guys. If nothing else, this can re-energize, I hope, the front office to get out there and do something. Again, early, because I don't think it needs to be much. I don't think it needs to be expensive. It just needs to be something. They need to get somebody in there to help.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, going back to the game yesterday, the opening game of the 4-game set with the Twins. Yeah, the Royals lost that game, but I honestly think that there were a couple of pretty decent positives that came out of that as we move forward in this 4-game set. Number one, yeah, Alec Marsh didn't have a great game pitching, but he ate up a bunch of innings and they didn't have to really rely on the bullpen. He pitched 7 strong, and then Nick Anderson came in and pitched, another inning. And so you've got what would be at least a semi-fresh bullpen for the remaining 3 games of this set. The Royals are down 6-1, going into the 9th. And so then they've got, that opportunity to not really have to worry about having it be a long bullpen game. Marsh he gave up a bunch of runs, but he didn't get chased out of the ball game. And so the previous game, the final game of the Rays series, they did have quite a bit of bullpen action in that game. And so I think they were able to reset and get that bullpen ready to go for the remaining 3 games of this Twins series. And on top of that, well, I think what we've noticed, at least what I've noticed multiple times throughout the course of this season, is that even when the Royals are dropping games, they're competitive in those games. You think, it's 6-1 in the 8th. It's, go ahead and pack it in, boys, like it's not going to happen for you. And then, oh, by the way, they score 4 in the 9th and they make it interesting. They don't get the win, but they're competitive. They don't roll over. They don't lay down. And so even despite a not great outing from Alec Marsh, despite the fact that the bats didn't really come alive until the 9th inning, despite the fact that Michael Massey is on the IL right now, they didn't go down without a fight. And so that's what I appreciate about this team. And so I do think that sort of thing continues to bode well for them as they move forward.
Yeah. They don't get a day off for 6 days either. So you had to have the bullpen there. So absolutely Marsh did a job.
And don't you think that's got to be tempting? It's tempting for Quatrero. It would be tempting for me if I was managing this team to be like, man, Marsh he doesn't have his best stuff today.
In a Twins game,
like let's go ahead and let's run to the bullpen, and have somebody else, come in and try to make it happen. They stuck with him, and I think that Marsh, and that's growth for this team. That's growth to be more forward thinking and say we don't have a day off for 6 days. This is a fairly crucial series for us because it is a division opponent, and we're trying to keep pace with the Guardians. So we need to do what we can. If we get back into this particular game, great. That's awesome. And they did in the 9th. But we need to stick with Marsh and have him eat up some innings because we need to save our bullpen arms for the remainder of the series. I think that's growth. I think it tells you a little bit about the way that this team is trying to compete.
It tells you what they think about Marsh, which is they think a lot of Marsh, and they've got to have that. So it allows you now in 3 games to run your 3 dudes out there because they'll go Reagans, Lugo, Singer in the next 3. And you think you got a good shot anytime those 3 so far have been on the mound, certainly Reagans and Lugo. I think you've got to try to get those 2 and split this series. So that's tonight. I mean, this is big time. As good as late May baseball gets, it's not the Guardians, but the Twins are going to be there at the end of the year. Right now, they're 4 games back of Kansas City. They can close that gap real fast if Kansas City can't find a way to at least split this series. The Guardians finally lost a game. It feels like they never lose. So you're 2.5 back of them. And I think it is not too early to start looking at the division that way, because I think all 3 of those teams are going to be there.
And you need to stay
head-to-head, especially.
You need to stay within striking distance of the Guardians as we get closer to that series next week, the midweek series on the road in Cleveland. Because at that point, if you can stay a game or 2, maybe 2.5, 3 at the most, if you can stay that far back from them or that close to them, when you go up against them head to head. That's been the big issue with this win streak from the Royals before they dropped 2 in a row, is that they were winning all these games and the Guardians were as well. So they weren't able to gain any ground. You just need to kind of keep pace with them. That way, when you actually face them head to head, that's going to be, come on, like that's the biggest series of the year so far, that set in Cleveland coming up. That's a week from now, middle of next week.
Yeah. Got to get through this one first though.
Yeah.
You'd like for this not to be a 3-team race because that could be trouble. Hey, we want to thank Prairie Fire Coffee for fueling us up each and every day here at KFH, all our Odyssey family. We got a lot coming up. We'll get back to the Royals because we want to, peek ahead at tonight's game specifically. Harrison Butker speaks again for the first time since his comments. We'll get you that, what he had to say. Tom Brady gives his thoughts on the Chiefs' chances at a three-peat, which I think are some pretty interesting thoughts that people might be able to have fun with. We've got those stories. We've got more. It's all coming for you on Sports Daily on this Tuesday. It is Tuesday, not Monday, as it does feel a lot like a Monday.
It's Monday.
This will be.
We'll call it Monday.
It'll be great. It'll be great that this is a short week because, man, this feels like a Monday. So that's good news. We'll come back. Let's get into some of this Chiefs talk. A couple of different stories that have, they're not, it's the summertime, but Tom Brady, the GOAT, talking about a three-peat chance. What does he think? He's about to be a broadcaster now. He's going to be in the business of making these store proclamations. I'll tell you what he had to say on the other side. Sports Daily coming right back.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
back, everybody. Sports Daily, 869-1240. That IHOP hotline is open for you. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about, what we're talking about, or perhaps something else you want to talk about. Something I think that might be good as just sort of an open-end thing would be Bill Walton died yesterday. And Bill Walton was an incredible player, certainly college, NBA. Some people think he was an incredible broadcaster. Some people don't. I loved his broadcast. I thought it was wacky and cool and different, and you knew what you were getting. It was late at night, usually in these later years. Like, I thought he was a real treasure as a color analyst, because there was certainly nobody like him. But that is you want to talk about a basketball personality that's about as big as you get, Tommy. When you think about college and pro and player and broadcast, like all of it all encompassing in the basketball world, man, his footprint was tremendous across that sport.
I'll be the first to admit I was not a fan of his broadcasting.
Right, I get it. Yeah.
But I absolutely appreciate who he was and what he did, what he brought to the sport of basketball, and the way that his irreverence sort of became endearing to a lot of people. It didn't for me. And again, like that's no knock on him as a person. I just didn't particularly care for his style. But what I do appreciate about him is if you read about how he became a broadcaster and what that looked like for him, not a ton of people know that he struggled with a terrible stutter for a long time in his life. I mean, grew up with one, throughout his career had one. He was painfully shy. And I know, like, even during his college and professional careers, playing the game,
strange.
he was painfully shy, never wanted to speak in front of a crowd, was kind of awkward looking, tall, gangly, red hair, all of that. And then sort of, after he retired from the NBA and his NBA career cut short by a bunch of injuries, and that was, a shame to look back on because he was dominant for, a while in college, especially. He embraced who he was. He embraced the irreverence that made Bill Walton, and took that into broadcasting, and his career took off. So it's impressive to me when you look back on his career and how he got to the point where he was. I'm sure that if you were to ask him when he was a teenager or in his 20s, there's no way he would have ever been a broadcaster, and especially one of the most popular ones to do it. So, I do appreciate him for what he was able to bring to the table.
So if you want to chime in on Bill Walton, the player, the broadcaster, I think for Tommy and I, it was more of the broadcaster, certainly.
For sure.
But I know of a different generation. Him as a player was certainly something people just, really, really loved, because he was one of the all-time greats. You can do that. The IHOP hotline is open at 869-1240. We'll just sort of leave that one open the rest of the day if anybody wants to chime in on that. All right, Tommy, we've got a couple of Chiefs stories here. We've got Tom Brady's thoughts on the Super Bowl, and we have Harrison Butker giving some more thoughts, some follow-up thoughts for the first time since he became really the face of the NFL for, a different reason. But these things happen, right? And let's start with Butker, because I think, Brady's comments we'll get to and probably spend a little bit more time with. But so Butker over the weekend told ESPN, I'm just going to give you his quote. I'm trying to make sure. Yeah, I was just in a conversation with ESPN. So he said, "It is now, over the past few days, my beliefs, or what people think I believe, have been the focus of countless discussions around the globe. At the outset, many people expressed a shocking level of hate, but as the days went on, even those who disagreed with my viewpoints shared their support for my freedom of religion." He added, "It's a decision I've consciously made and one I do not regret at all." I think that end person, the end thing there is one of the big ones. He does not regret them at all. It was intentional, even with the attentions it's received. I think, and again, I'm reading these quotes, so I want to be fair to them. I didn't hear them or see them, so I don't have like an emotional context to them, which is quite frankly where a lot of this has all started, right? So I'm trying to guess, but a shocking level of hate is an interesting place to go. he's right. There have been a lot of people, myself included, that even when we don't agree with everything in his speech, think it's important that he's allowed to do it and give it. His teammates have basically said the same thing. Good person. He can say what he wants. Don't agree with everything. Good teammate, whatever, right? But to be shocked by the level of hate, there was hate in his speech. So I hope that wasn't, and what I don't, and again, I don't know the exact, I need to hear it said. Like, don't be shocked that there's a level of hate because you spit a little hate out there in the first place. So you can't have both, that you can't like play woe is me. And I doubt that's what he was doing, but you can't play woe is me. It's like Tom Brady saying, leave my kids out of it and making jokes at his roast about Kim Kardashian's kids. Like you can't have both things. Like you can either express some of your levels of and attack a lot of different groups of people, but then you can't be surprised if they push back.
It's sort of like what is it? Newton's law of motion, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Like that's,
and in the world of social media, every action has a much larger reaction.
I wouldn't even say equal. It's probably a larger reaction to every action. But that has been just a constant truth in this world forever, for millennia. And you say something, you do something, but if you don't expect a reaction, whether positive or negative, then you're doing it wrong. And that's so for Butker to say that he was shocked at the level of hate that was, levied back at him, that tells me that he did this, basically from a zealot's point of view. Like he was overzealous in his words if he didn't expect a negative reaction, at least in some capacity. And right. That also tells me that in his mind, there is his viewpoint in his mind is infallible, because if he's shocked at the level, if he's shocked at the level of response back to him in a negative way, then that tells me that he has never, ever one time even considered, that his point of view might not be the right one. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong for Harrison Butker to believe that. I'm just saying from being able to sort of take apart the context of what he is saying and say that he was shocked at the level of negative reaction coming out of what he said, it tells me that maybe you're not really living in reality then, because clearly to me, from an outsider looking in, you read, and it's not even taking his words out of context, just reading the words themselves. I would look at that and I would say, okay, that's going to get a reaction on both sides. Like that's a polarizing statement. Sure. And so if you're not able to register that, then it tells me that really you've never like deeply thought about the other side of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's intentional. Like he's telling us it's intentional. So if it's intentional, you have to understand what that comes with. And I think that he does. What I don't want to see now, as I've, talked about, but like it's important. This has been an important thing for a lot of different reasons. And it's important that we're learning about, cancel culture or whatever you want to call it, sort of fading away, which I think is probably a good thing for society for the most part. Right. And it's important to see like what level of reaction this warrants and how his teammates react to it. And is it more publicly acceptable for people to obviously believe different things than other people? But if you're intentional with that speech, you're going to have to be intentional with the attention that it brings, both positive and negative. And here's what I hope doesn't happen, Tommy. Please don't let this happen. Like Butker all of a sudden struggles because, kickers get cut and punters get cut all the time. Like they get released. I hope he doesn't struggle, get released, and then we get a new conspiracy theory. Like, oh, they're just trying to push him out because of, whatever. And you see those aggregators going nuts. Like I remember there was when Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid last week finally reacted to it, and they basically just defended his right to say what he wants and said he's a good person. Those aggregators on social media, I don't even know how they do this. AI bots, I don't know what it is, but they're all like, they're saying they love what he had to say. And I'm
strongly defending everything that he had. No, they're not. They didn't say
nobody's listening to anything anybody's saying. Just like I don't think Harrison Butker told women to stay in the kitchen and spit out babies. I don't think that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid were saying we love it. Like it's so such a stupid place.
But everything
like,
is in a
can we
vacuum.
just stay off?
Everything is in
I
a
know
vacuum.
it's so
you know?
wild. It's so wild. So what I hope doesn't happen is that he struggles, gets cut, and then we have a new conspiracy theory on our hands. I don't think that's going to happen because he was nails last year. And it's not like anything. He's given that speech before, by the way. So it's not like this is a new thing for him. It's just what he believes is fine. But he did react to it. So I wanted to put that out there. It's interesting. He's going to wear that on his sleeve, and it's going to make an interesting dynamic for this team because at least for a little while, it will be, I don't want to call it a distraction, but it will draw attention. It will draw attention from kind of some weird places that will bleed into the locker room, certainly, because that's what people want to do. They want to try and poke that bear and get a little mileage out of it. So we'll see, because it all goes into a team trying to three-peat. So now you just have little things, right? You've got, players doing things, making poor decisions, making bold decisions, whatever it is, just little things. And I think that's probably some of, Tommy, what Tom Brady's talking about when he talks about how hard it is to three-peat. Let's take a break. Tom Brady gave his thoughts. So we'll sort of bridge that into, and we can spend, time with this. Tom Brady's a broadcaster now. So we're going to see his very public-facing thoughts on a lot of things. That's interesting because I want to get inside his brain on. That's why I think I can't wait for him to be an analyst, because I want to see, the game through his eyes in some ways. He talked about the Chiefs trying to three-peat, something he could never do, the GOAT. We'll get into that when we return. The IOP hotline's open, 869-1240. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. You can also leave us those comments, by the way, on our video stream, and we'll get to those on the air as well. Tom Brady's thoughts on a three-peat when we return on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Tony Dusing producing the program today for us. Chad Chambers is out. That IHOP hotline is open at 869-1240. Appreciate everybody watching us on our video stream that you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, on our X page. Really appreciate you tuning in. You can leave your comments right there on the page to be able to join in with the show and let us know what you're thinking, where you're listening, and how your day is going. We'd love to connect with you there. This portion of the program brought to you by Crestview Country Club, and we appreciate Crestview being involved in the program. Big weekend out there, Memorial Day weekend, kind of. We talked about it at the top of the show, the big kickoff to summer everywhere, but especially out at Crestview. Had the opportunity to play a little golf over the weekend, had the opportunity to be able to enjoy the pool for the Memorial Day pool party. Actually hung out with Jacob and his family there for a while yesterday afternoon. They do this big splash contest. I thought it was like a cannonball contest, but you can do whatever. You don't have to do a cannonball. You can do a gainer. You can, do belly flop, whatever you want to do to get the big splash. And they've got the kids division. They've got the adult division. I really, really tried to convince Jacob to take part in that big splash contest. Didn't do it. He was not willing to jump in and actually make that happen. So I do know, by the way, that your son Bray, we're talking about the big splash contest yesterday out at Crestview. He was killer. He did a great job at that.
That's his first time.
I tried to get you to do it in the adult division. You turned me down.
I've done it before, and it's fine. So I have a problem with splash contests, not like fundamentally. I love splash contests. I have a problem trying to win one. I don't have the appropriate girth to put up much of a fight. Number one. Number two, I have to hold my and listen, you can make fun of me all you want. It's like this thing. It's why I can't properly swim. I have to hold my nose when I go into the water. It's like a mental block. And so when you have to hold your nose, you can't get like a good jackknife. You know what you need to do. You can't really do that if you got to hold your nose. And I'm old. Like things hurt, like they stay hurting for a little while. So there's a pretty good chance I'm going to flop on that. And I just like it's one of those things like, do you do it just to do it when you know you can't win? Like when you know you have no chance to win it? Because I've been like this would be, I think, the third of this particular contest. I know I can't win it. Usually it's up there because my kids are like, do it, Dad. And I'm like, okay, fine. But, I wasn't hearing that this time anyway. There wasn't a lot of pressure on me this time like there has been in years past. So I didn't.
It's a good example to set for Bray. I mean, he did a killer job. I mean, that was
He
that was
asked
great.
me. I did not ask him
Yeah.
to do it. They don't want to go off the high dive. So Crestview is a super high dive and a low dive. And my oldest daughter was like, I would do it off the low dive, and I'm like, I'll bet you if you go ask them, they'll let you do it off the low dive. I mean, you're not going to win, but if you just want to have fun with it, go for it. And so he's not 5 yet. Was like, I want to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, you can do it if you want to do it. He's like, can I do it off the low dive? I was like, you can do whatever you want. What are they going to tell a 4-year-old that they can't do it? And so he goes over there, and he is, man, he's got just like, he's never met a stranger. Like he's just, and he did. He got off, he jumped, he belly flopped like he usually does when he jumps into the water, and he owned it. And everybody cheered, and he got out. He thought it was really cool. And he was really cool for doing it.
My wife and I were talking after the party yesterday, and first off, I mean, it was very well attended. There were a lot of people, a lot of young families. I think you and I were talking about it at one point, during the actual party itself that, Crestview did a great job putting that together. But my wife and I were talking about it after the fact. It's a different kind of pool party when you have little kids. I remember it wasn't that long ago. I mean, my oldest is only 3. So, I mean, like it wasn't that long ago that my wife and I didn't have kids. And a pool party was going and hanging out all day, probably having quite a few, adult beverages, maybe just enjoying ourselves, having fun, relaxing, all of that. And this time it was still a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun when you've got kids, but it was chasing them around, making sure they don't drown, I mean, it's a different experience overall.
Yeah, we're at 9, 7, and a little under 5. And I still it's still eyes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, there's 3. Here we got 3. Your son, I think you jumped up to grab us a beer, and he was just hanging with me and another guy. Like he'd never met a stranger, just making conversation.
My kid is
no big deal.
My son is he loves dads. Like if there are dads, he's gonna like just migrate to the dads. And I told somebody that I'm like, man, he just, if you're a dad, he's gonna like cling on to you. They're like, what does that tell you about you? Like he's got to get away from you and go to other dads. I'm like, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But no,
there's a lot of ways to take that, or he just enjoys dads. I mean, you got that father son, which is pretty good. My son is definitely on a mom kick right now.
Yeah.
He's got her melting like butter. He knows it. She's his youngest. She's freaking out that he's going to go to kindergarten next year and getting older. And so he knows how to work it. Like he just knows how to work it. And he does, man. And of course she's like, bring it on. Like, give me all of that love and attention. I'm like, you're so toast when he gets older. Like that kid's going to get away with murder because he just will be able to work you over like nobody's business. But it's fun. It was a good pool party. It was a good way to, to sort of kick off the summer. I'm not sure that, doing that for, how long were we out there? 3.5 hours, and then immediately follow it up with a 5.5 hour round of golf.
That was
it's an interesting play.
I'm impressed that you were able to do that, because I got home from the pool and I'm like, I need to probably take a nap for an hour or two if I can. So that was impressive that you turned around and went right out and played golf.
It was the right day for it. It wasn't overly hot or anything, but I mean, those days you got to kind of plan for them a little bit when you get up there in age. You can't just get that pulled off with no consequence. And I don't have any consequences. I was very responsible with everything yesterday. because we have just a crazy week coming here. But it's still a lot of sunshine for that. Man, it was good to play golf, though.
Yeah,
it was good to play golf.
And look, we're only a couple of weeks away from the Wichita Open. And then they've got the course out there looking pretty good. I think they've got, a little bit to go. I mean, we still got 2 weeks. So I know the groundskeepers and all of that, are going to do everything that they can to get it ready to go for the Wichita Open. But man, this is the best time of year for sure to be involved at a place like Crestview, or Crestview specifically. So shout out to them. They put on a great Memorial Day pool party. And then of course the Open is in a couple of weeks. There's a lot going on out there. It's a good time to be a member.
Yeah, it was just right. It was just right. Good way to start it. A lot of good people, a lot of good hellos. And, you bound into of course, that first round of golf is, of course, the one that takes 5.5 hours. Your big reason I don't play a lot of golf is because I don't have the time commitment. So this one I would made sure, like, we've got, a few, and it's like, I'm going to get everything done. Like, my wife's like, why do you keep talking about golf and all that? It's like, because here's what I don't want to happen. And I know what's coming. I'm going to get to about hole 6. What time are you going to be done?
Right.
I'm like, I'm telling you right now, this is going to take a long time. And I don't want to spend half my time worried about how fast we're playing. And then it's a 5.5 hour round. And I'm like,
were you battling the sun going down? I mean, I'm thinking about the time that you would have teed off and the length of the
right
round.
At the end. Yeah. There was a lot of this on the, coming down the home stretch, but no, we made it in plenty of time. I lost my 7-iron.
Oh, did you throw it?
Bad one to lose. No, I was doing, the putt thing where you hit it like a putter off the fringe, and I must have left it. I'm notorious, but a 7, I like to, if I could lose any club, that'd probably be the last one I want to lose.
A fairly important club to have in your bag.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully they can find that for me. We'll come back hour number 2. What does Tom Brady think about the Chiefs winning a 3rd Super Bowl? We'll hit that next. A little more Royals talk and more as we roll into hour number 2 on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be with you. Hour number 2 of the program. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Max Power in on an audible. Always appreciate Max being a part of the program. He's manning that IHOP hotline for us at 869-1240. Thank you, Max, for doing that for us today, as we'll get Jad back in here as soon as he is able. We have Tom Brady. He's going to do a lot of this, right? So don't be surprised by this. Don't think of this as Tom Brady's running his mouth. Tom Brady's now going to be the top analyst for Fox. So he's going to have some opinions on things. And he has one, as told to Colin Cowherd, on the Chiefs and their chances to win a third Super Bowl. He said, quote, "Believe me, everybody would probably put them as one of the odds-on favorites to do it. But even that there's not a 50% chance of that happening. There's way less than that. Those players are going to have to show up every day. They're going to have to put in the work like they have." He went on to say, fortunately, they have a tremendous coach in Andy Reid who doesn't ever look backward. He's going to say, hey, because we were great last year, we're going to be great again this year. He's got a very veteran, experienced championship-level coach who holds these guys accountable. They've got a great quarterback in Patrick, who we know when he's on the field, he's as great a football player as there is in the NFL. They have a lot of great pieces, but to win it all again is a momentous task. No one is going to put it past them, but we're all excited to show up on opening day and see what the 2024 Chiefs can do. I think that's fair. He says less than 50-50, which is probably accurate, Tommy, because if you're saying it's less than 50-50, you're basically saying, in my opinion, that you would take the field versus the Chiefs, right? Would you, on May 28th, take the field versus the Chiefs?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I think that I would probably at this point take the Chiefs. I mean, I would. And the reason I would say that right now is just because they've won the last two. And, until
Right.
Until proven otherwise, they're the defending champs and they have been 2 years running. So I understand the way the NFL works. I understand the parity. I understand how difficult it is to win one championship, much less two, much less three. Get all of that. I got it. This is a team unlike any that we've seen, in a long time. And from top to bottom, doesn't matter, if some of the supporting cast changes from year to year, the overall process and the overall structure and everything with this franchise remains the same. And until they're knocked off the top of the mountain, it's hard to bet against them. I did, believe me, like if you remember shows in the middle of last season, I was really down on the Chiefs. I thought they were bad. I didn't even think they were just average. I thought they were a bad football team. I didn't even think they were playoff worthy necessarily. But again, that structure and the way that they build things, the culture, I guess, if you want to call it that, it shone through, and it was able to work despite some of the clear deficiencies that the team last season had. And, yeah, there are absolutely going to be deficiencies this season because there are every year. But again, if that culture can win out like it has the last two, it's hard for me to bet against them.
I don't want to cop out and say I don't have an answer today. I got to look at it two different ways. It's hard for me. I'm not ready to. We aren't making like NFL predictions. I know I would pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl again if we're just talking about NFL predictions. From a Chiefs versus the field perspective, though, when you don't have to then say, okay, if it's Chiefs, then if it's not Chiefs, then it's who, right? Like if we're making it's one thing to say I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl and pick them against rather than another team winning the Super Bowl. It's another thing to say, would you take the Chiefs or everybody else? This has never been done in the NFL. And there have been better teams, I think, that have failed in doing it. I think the most obvious one would have been the mid-90s Cowboys. That team had no business not winning 3 in a row. Should have been probably 4 in a row. But if we're looking at it like what team maybe had the best chance to do it, I think that's probably still the team that had the best chance to do it, and they couldn't get it done. If you're looking at the field, injuries, right? I don't know how you could ever take a team versus the field, right? Again, we're talking about two different things. To say I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, I do think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. But that's when I don't have to pick a replacement. When it's Chiefs versus the field, everybody can be the replacement, right? You have 30 other teams that can be the replacement. I'm not having to pick then somebody else besides the Chiefs. If I get to take the field, I get all of them. I can't say that. I would agree with Brady that the chances of that are less than 50-50. There's injuries to consider. There are the factors that the defense will not be as good. I mean, I'm pretty confident in if it is, build a statue of Steve Spagnuolo. That defense is as good next year as it was last year. I'll be stunned because of the losses that they took. Just inherently, it's hard for me to imagine that it could be good in different ways. Could be, it could be dangerous in different ways, but holistically, I don't think the defense will be as good. So then it's like, okay, but does the offense take the step forward? I think that that's very much a possibility. But again, am I so confident that it will that I would take the Chiefs over the other 31 teams in the NFL?
I mean,
I don't know if I can do that.
How many times did somebody in the 90s pick the field over the Bulls? And the Bulls three-peated twice. And I'm sure that it was
very different in basketball.
But I mean,
it's happened a lot in basketball.
But we're talking dynasties here, right? And so, but I would imagine that, in the 90s, and I watched The Last Dance just like everybody else did. There were teams that had a substantial amount of talent. Everybody remembers what the Bulls did, and they remember the big three, and the Chiefs have their own big three, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, in the same way that the Bulls had Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Like they had that too. And I know it's two different sports, But if you look at just the landscape and the talent in the NBA during that same time, I'm sure that, after the first championship in each one of those three-peats, that everybody prognosticated that somebody else would win the next year's championship. And then after the Bulls won two, then heading into the third year, it was like, well, there's Olajuwon in the Rockets, and there's O'Neal in the Magic, and the Pistons had, they had been the dominant team prior to the Bulls coming in, and there were all of these other, teams that had a substantial amount of talent during that time. And it's really, I think, easy to say, well, yeah, somebody else is going to win. I mean, the field is the field, and you're taking one team. It'd be different if there had been a gap in the middle, right? Like if it was, I don't know, the Chiefs had won one and then they lost the second, then it would be a lot easier and more comfortable for me to say, well, yeah, it's the field. I mean, I think that the Chiefs could probably come back and win 2 Super Bowls in 3 years after they lost against the 49ers last season, but that's not the reality. They've won 2 in a row. They're back to back. And so again, until proven otherwise, I think I've learned at least I'd like to think I've learned my lesson into not doubting them. I doubted them in a major, major way multiple times last season. And at the end of the day, they were the last one standing. And everybody that had doubted them and left them for dead and said that this is a team that they cannot overcome their issues, they cannot overcome their absolutely obvious deficiencies, they won the Super Bowl. And so I think I've learned my lesson. I can't pick against them until proven otherwise.
That's not, don't misunderstand. Again, as of May 28th, I think the Chiefs are going to win a third straight Super Bowl. I think they're going to do it. It's more of, to Brady's point, less than 50-50. I think that that's accurate. And so what I think will happen in the reaction is that people say, oh, Brady doesn't think the Chiefs can do it. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying it's more likely than not that they won't do it. And I don't think that that's a knock on the Chiefs, because I'll bet you if you made Brady, and not maybe not now because they'll feel like he has to back this up, but like who's your favorite to win the Super Bowl? Most people are going to say the Chiefs. And I think that that's the right answer, by the way. It's my answer. I agree with that. I think they're the most likely to win the Super Bowl. But I think that can be true at the same time as saying there's less than a 50% chance they pull this off. There's way less than a 50% chance that anybody else does. If you have to pick another, like who would, I haven't looked at the odds. So I'm going to guess the 49ers are probably the next odds on favorite, or maybe even ahead of the Chiefs. There's also way less than 50% chance that the 49ers win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about it by percentage chances, I would say the Chiefs probably have the highest percentage chance, but it ain't 50%, or they would be they'd be a 1-to-1 bet, right? Like the odds are not that good. That's what so what are they, 4-to-1 right now? I don't know how to equate that. I'm not an analytics guy or anything, but I would imagine that's Vegas saying it's about a 25% chance they win the Super Bowl, right? To break even. Vegas is always trying to break even and take the juice. So giving you 4-to-1 odds, that would be like saying about a 25% chance that they win the Super Bowl. And I think that's probably right. When you have to factor in everything, injuries, all of these things. So yeah, they might be that high or low, whatever you want to look at it, but everybody else is still lower than that, right? It's still harder. It's going to be harder and less likely for anybody else to do it. I think it's more just pointing out how difficult and unlikely it is that they do it anyway. And I think that's fair, and that's probably accurate. You can like the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, but still understand or say that it's still less than a 50% chance it happens. And I think that that's totally fair. And I think it's accurate too. I think he's right.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, you can talk logic all day long. You can talk, the sports books and, Vegas wanting to try to break even and all of that. That's all well and good. And I get it. I understand trying to apply logic to it. I applied as much logic as I possibly could a season ago.
Right.
And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to, for me, I can't make that happen again this year. I can't do that again because while I was really happy, obviously, that they won, I also was like, what? I felt stupid. I felt like they had
But
absolutely like caused me to have egg on my face and everybody who had doubted them throughout the season.
No,
last
but
year.
I think saying this now on May 28th and when you were saying that in December are very different things. Like you thought the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl before the season started.
I
as
certainly
things
didn't after week 6, after week
Right.
10, after
Totally.
week 16.
Agree.
I didn't think that.
When we get into this season, this answer will change. When we see the defense and how good it can be, can it follow it up? When we see how they navigate and how the wide receiver room has, you would imagine, grown with Hollywood Brown and a first-round pick and whatever, contribution of Rashee Rice you can get. Like, once we get into the season, I think this answer changes. But I think on May 28th, when you look at it, I just don't know that there's ever been an NFL team that you could overwhelmingly say is a better than 50% chance winner before any season starts, because what that means is you got to take that team versus the field. And again, I can't remember a team more loaded, dominant, equipped all across the board than the rest of the league than those mid-90s Cowboys to be there, and they couldn't even get it done. And they should have gotten it done, right? That they should have done it with as loaded as those teams were. So I think it's okay on May 28th, before we've seen anything, to take the field versus the Chiefs, but still pick the Chiefs as your Super Bowl winner. I think both of those things can exist now.
Here's the other thing. You go back to that Christmas Day loss last year against the Raiders. That was probably the low spot of the season for the Chiefs. And after that game was done, their Super Bowl odds, they were 8-1. They were 8-1 after that loss. This team right now, as it's constructed, I would believe is significantly better than
6-1 right now.
Yeah, but I'm talking.
You're saying,
I'm saying that they were 8-1 at that point. This team right now is significantly better than what they were then
at that time.
And so what I'm saying is that if they were still 8-1 at the low spot of the season last year, according to the odds makers, and so I would say that a lot of those quote unquote deficiencies that they suffered through last year probably are not. They might still be there to some extent, but I don't think that they're there. I don't think they're going to rear their ugly head like they did last year. There might be new ones that pop up, and that sort of thing happens, and barring injuries, and you never know. What I'm saying is that even at the lowest of the low last year during the regular season, when everybody was giving up and jumping ship, and I was one of them, they were still 8-1 to win the Super Bowl at that point. And this team now is better than what they were then in week 16 of last year. And they were still 8-1 at that point. So yeah, okay. Logic should probably tell you that whenever you have the opportunity to take the field over a team that's won back-to-back, you probably should take the field. I get all that. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying is that I was burned last year because I jumped ship and gave up on them. And if there's any team that could win 3 in a row, it's going to be this team with the way that their culture is built.
So in those conversations that would, you'd get so mad at me because I almost it wasn't a crutch, but my thought never changed. It was like, look, this defense with Mahomes and Kelsey and Andy Reid in the playoffs is going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Same thing. I kept saying the same thing over and over and over again. The biggest part of that for me last year was the defense. And so that's where I'm at pause with the Chiefs. I have to be, because if they didn't have one of the top defenses in football last year, I wouldn't have been saying that. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, no matter what happens, if they have Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy Reid, they'll be fine. No, my point was this defense is it's not just opportunistic, but people can't score on them at will, like they have in some time. So you really only need 3-4 good drives out of the Chiefs offensively in a game. That's why I kept, like, in my head, I'm like, man, that is a formula that will work, can work at least, and probably will work, is because if you're telling me Mahomes and Kelsey and Reid only need about 4 drives in a game, then that's I don't know if that's going to be the case. And that's what's so hard for me to, again, I'm picking the Chiefs to win this. I don't think there's anything that's going to happen to take me off of that. But I don't know what that looks like yet. And until we see that defense out there and see if it can get close to replicating last year. It's going to have to be different than it was last year, which it absolutely can be because they obviously took some steps offensively. I just don't know, like, what's the, the yin and the yang there? Like, how much better offensively are they going to need to be if they're not as good defensively? I don't know that yet. If they're close to what they were last year defensively, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl.
I think they'll be close. I mean, I think that it's fine to say that they're probably not going to be as elite, at least to start the year, because they need to still kind of figure out exactly who's sliding into what role. I think it's fair to say that they should still be a really good defense in the NFL. I don't know if it would be a fair expectation to say that they will replicate what they did a year ago defensively. But what does it tell you about this team overall? Because it tells me a lot. It should tell us a lot, I think, that as soon as the lines opened after the Super Bowl last year for this coming season, the Chiefs were 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. In February, they were 7-1. Pre-free agency in March, they were 6.5-1. Pre-draft, they were 6-1, and currently they set it 5.5-1.
5.5. Yeah.
What does that tell you? But what should it tell us about this team? And I know we're talking like odds makers and that sort of thing. I mean, their odds are almost
they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Half of what they were when the lines opened right after the championship last year.
I wish I would have had more context on Brady's thought, because I think it's interesting. I think what Brady was talking about was their chance to repeat, and I agree with him. I don't think any team ever in the NFL goes into a season where you could say they have a better chance than the rest of the league. Now, obviously, things happen and teams win Super Bowl, and that's why we make these picks. I want to know, if you ask Brady who his Super Bowl pick is, if he'd say the Chiefs, because those are two different things, right? It's one when you can pick the field. It's the other when you got to pick a different team. Those are very different things, having to take and plant your flag with another team versus the entire rest of the NFL. There will be teams in that conversation, right? I think the most obvious and easy and clear place to go is San Francisco. They've got a couple of holdout situations they've got to deal with, and they've got that whole mess.
I think
and
Baltimore looks like a team that's going to be a legitimate challenger.
They've lost a lot on the offensive line, which I know has people pretty concerned.
I think Detroit is a real contender. I wasn't bought into them early last year.
Those are the top four by odds, the ones you mentioned. I would say Cincinnati would be the other team I would probably lean into a little bit. Possibly the Eagles, but it's the 49ers, I think, that are the biggest threat. And I would say in the AFC, it's Cincinnati and not Baltimore. But I mean, they're all going to be right there. And I'm not sure, because with Buffalo taking a step back and Cincinnati having, Joe Burrow, he's got to come back from injury. He's got to come back from major injury. And they don't have Joe Mixon anymore. I look, the Chiefs' path in the AFC, you could say, is clearer than it has been in the past.
So
you could absolutely say that.
I went through just a moment ago the opening odds for the Chiefs from the time that the lines were opened to now for the Super Bowl. Those other four teams, I guess four of them, we didn't talk. The Bengals aren't part of this, but if we're talking Niners, Ravens, Lions, and Bills, let's just say those other four teams, the Chiefs are the only one out of those five where the odds have actually gone down significantly from the start of the offseason to right now. The Niners went from 5.5-1 when the line opened. They're 6-1. The Ravens went from 9.5-1 to 9. The Lions have stayed the same at 12-1. And the Bills have went from 8.5-1 to 12-1 because of who they lost in free agency and that sort of thing. So, the Chiefs are the only one out of that kind of that top echelon of teams that it looks like the general public is even higher on them right now than they were immediately following when they won the championship in February, based on maybe what they did in free agency, bringing on Hollywood Brown and really trying to improve that whole receiving core situation, what they were able to do in the draft with Xavier Worthy and some of the other pieces that they got. It seems like the betting public, at least the odds makers, are even higher on Kansas City, probably more so than any other team in the NFL from the time that the offseason started until right now.
Yeah,
I think that should
and I
tell us a
agree
lot.
with it. It should tell us what the league thinks of, the decisions in three. I think the team that probably has the most room either direction is Houston. And, you add Diggs, they're sort of going all in behind CJ Stroud. And I get it. And if you don't think CJ Stroud's going to be ready and able to make that jump, well, Patrick Mahomes did, and others have, in that second year. They have. So I wouldn't write them off as a team to make a little noise this year. I don't know if they're quite ready yet. I don't know if they're as top to bottom complete, but they certainly could be. And it does look more open for the Chiefs if they stay healthy to do what they need to do. I think they have more wiggle room than they've had in years past, certainly. So maybe it is better than 50%. I think that's pretty accurate, though. I think on May 28th, it's hard to take the Chiefs versus the field, even if, like me, you think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's where we get to. Let's see where Rashee Rice lands on his stuff. Let's see how this defense looks. Give me, I don't know. And these things change over the course of the year. Give me like 2 weeks to be ready to say the Chiefs. But, I think it's hard to say otherwise because it's never been done before. I mean, let's remember that too.
But I think if you strip away the fact that they've won the last two. Like, let's just say that all things are equal and they didn't win the last two. You're just taking the body of work that they have in front of them and the team that they're going to put out on the field right now. I think that they're still the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And I think that it can be influenced a little bit, whether
They
positively
are
or negatively.
Certainly the favorite.
The
to win
narrative,
Super Bowl.
I think the narrative can be impacted one way or the other because they've won the last two. It changes things. It changes the way that people talk about them, thinks about them. I'm waiting to hear, and maybe it's already out there in the zeitgeist, but I'm waiting to hear this narrative of the pressure is like higher on Kansas City than it ever has been before because nobody's ever done 3 in a row. And I can guarantee you in that locker room, nobody cares about that. It's not about the pressure. It's not about we have to do something that's never been done before. It's about, hey, let's go out and win a Super Bowl. Doesn't matter what we did last year. Doesn't matter what we did 2 years ago. Let's take this crew and go win a championship now. So I'm just waiting for that to come into play, and the fact that, like, let's say that they drop a couple of games, throughout the process, or they go on a little bit of a downward trend at some point. You better believe you're going to hear like, well, the pressure got to them. They had pressure to win 3 in a row. That guy, and I don't think that's accurate. And so, you just have to be cognizant of that and strip it all away and don't let what happened in the past years influence what this particular team has and what they're going to go to bat with.
Yeah. Look, we got to take a break. We can continue this because I'm fascinated. They absolutely should be the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. There's no question about that. It's are they in a position where you could take them versus the rest of the league? Maybe they are. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself into it because it's hard to. The problem is the unpredictable, right? Like, what are the chances they make it through the whole season without a significant injury that could throw all that up? You can start there with the NFL. Like, and do you have good enough injury fortune to win a Super Bowl? That's why I think it's always going to be less than 50%. What do you think? Let us know on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We're going to come back. We can continue this conversation. We'll get into the Royals, too. We'll just talk about their game specifically tonight as we return. But the IHOP hotline's open if you want to chime in. It's a Tuesday. We're all getting back in the groove of a work week after a long weekend. We're there with you. But join in the fun. We'll be right back. Albracht and Castor Sports Daily, rolling ahead.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
It's like, since Brady didn't do it, he doesn't want to. I would imagine if you ask the competitor Tom Brady if he wants Patrick Mahomes to do it, he'd probably say no, right? Because he couldn't do it, and they didn't get it done in that game. That they just at the very end they didn't do what they needed to do, right, to get the win. So he had the chance, but it came in off years. He didn't know he would have had the chance because the one they didn't get was in the middle. That's why I bring up that Cowboys team, because remember, they won the 2 and then lost in the NFC Championship game and then won the next one after that. So I don't know if there's been a team, maybe the Chiefs now with this year, maybe this is the best chance a team will have had going into a season. Maybe it is. I just don't think I think the league is a little more top to bottom dicey and competitive probably than it was at that point for the Cowboys. But I don't know. I mean, is this the most likely going into this point of a season, Tommy, that that a team has to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Three times? You know what I mean? Three times in a row.
Like, why not? And again, I think you have to strip away the context of knowing that they won the last 2 and just look at this team in a bubble by itself, because there are going to be some different faces. There is every single year with every single team. And so if you just look at who this team is by itself, are they the best team in the NFL, the best chance to win a Super Bowl? And I think the answer is yes. It doesn't matter if they won the last 2 or not. And I think that if they weren't the best team and there were teams that were better, that had a better likelihood to win a Super Bowl based off of the collection of talent and all of that, coaching, everything that we know goes into winning a championship, then yeah, I think you can identify who that other team is or if there are multiple ones. But right now, I think it's the Chiefs, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they won the last two.
Yeah, vacuum, yes. Are they? I don't know. We had the odds on the mid '90s Cowboys team, but it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I think this team is very equipped to get it done. I think that they will get it done. Do I think it's better than 50% chance? I don't, but I definitely think it could improve. There are just the real X factor in all of this, Tommy, is Mahomes. But again, and this is more to Max's point, and this is why I think it was a good point by Max during the break. In that Super Bowl in between, that in theory could have given the Patriots their 3 in a row, he threw for 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, despite the fact that Brady was that good. Little dumb things like a late game decision cost them. It's just like, and Brady did say this in his, like, the razor thin margin for error in the NFL is what makes this so difficult. The best team doesn't always win the Super Bowl, right? Or we would have had 3 in a row Super Bowl winners by now. It's not always the best team that wins the Super Bowl because a team makes a mistake that costs them their chance to do it, even though they're the best team. I think that happens all the time in the NFL. So there is still a component that no matter how great Mahomes is, something happens to keep this from happening. This is going to make this season, for a variety of reasons, such a blast to watch because everybody now either really wants the Chiefs to be on this side of history or really does not want the Chiefs to be on this side of history. Like, there will never be a more clear line. They will never be as big a villain. They have never been as big a villain as they'll be this year.
Yeah, and look, as far as like a razor thin margin, I agree. I also disagree with you to some extent because where I do agree with you, Zay Flowers from a razor thin margin was the only thing that kept the Ravens out of the Super Bowl last year, right? Like that was a extremely costly fumble, and basically that cost the Ravens. And if you don't have that fumble on the half-yard line from Zay Flowers, then the Ravens are playing the Niners in the Super Bowl. So, yes, I agree with you there. It's a razor-thin margin when it comes to each individual little moment, each individual little thing that happens in crunch time down the stretch. Where I disagree with you from a razor-thin margin perspective is that the Chiefs went through probably one of the worst periods of the Mahomes era in the regular season last year, and they still made it all the way. Like that razor thin margin didn't exist in the regular season because they were still able to overcome how like the major issues that everybody talked about forever, and they still found their way there. So razor thin, yes, in the exact moment where it mattered the most to get the Chiefs into the Super Bowl, but at a larger scale from a 30,000 foot view, doesn't really matter that much.
That's a really good point. Because I do forget. I don't ever think about Mahomes' struggles last year because he did have them. And I think there were contributing factors to why, they was pressing. They couldn't get anything figured out at wide receiver. There were a bunch of different reasons to that. But I forget that he struggled last year. And he has struggled at times in other years. I don't think that's going to happen this year. Like if I'm a fantasy football player, and I am, I would say I would tell you that I think Mahomes will be the top guy this year. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to have a real big year. I think Hollywood Brown to Mahomes, the Mahomes Hollywood Brown thing, I'm all about it. I think it's going to be fantastic. My questions right now for the Chiefs, I have 2 of them. It's at left tackle, which we know Mahomes can work through that, though. That's less of a question. It could be a problem, but he's had questions there before outside of the Super Bowl loss to Tampa. It's more about the defense. Where is that margin? If they're not going to be as good, and I don't think that, I think it's almost impossible for them to be, how much worse will they be? Are they just a little bit worse? Then it's fine. They lost significant pieces. Chris Jones is a year older. Like, there are a lot of reasons why they could come back down to earth defensively. And if that happens, I just want to know, like, okay, but then how much better does the offense have to be? That's why on May 28th, it's like, yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, but I do think there's enough we need to see to help us come to that conclusion. And we will. Like, we're going to know these answers pretty quickly. But, always interesting when Brady talks. He's going to do a lot of this, by the way. So just get ready. We're going to get in. He's the top analyst there.
He's a prognosticator now. Like, that's part of what his job is.
D asks us on our video stream, which you can find, by the way, on Facebook, YouTube, and X, why we're not showing any love to Shocker Baseball. Coach had to. D, I'd tell you that you should listen to the entire 2 hours before you ask us why we haven't talked about something. We opened the show with it. You can go back and listen to that. But we can give them another shout out here. Congratulations to Shocker Baseball on a nice tournament run that had us all excited. I was locked into that championship game. That was an emotional roller coaster. But yeah, as we mentioned to open the show, it definitely creates a different sort of buzz going into this offseason for Shocker Baseball. Also talked a little bit about the Royals to open up. Let's talk about their game specifically tonight, probably over the rest of this series, Tommy. We alluded a little bit to the magnitude of it, but we both feel like it's pretty big, and it starts with your two aces on the mound over the next two. Nothing in May is must win, but it feels as much of that, when we talk about divisional implications. We'll get into it in a minute. We'll look at it maybe from the betting perspective and everything else. Let's talk a little more Royals baseball when we return. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Thanks for hanging with me with my voice today, everybody. If you're watching our video stream, I apologize for what you just saw. Thanks, Tommy, for bailing me out. I just got annihilated by a coughing attack. So sorry, everybody that had to watch that. You didn't hear it on the air. I muted my microphone. But you can always see that kind of fun little insight on the video stream. So check it out. Facebook, YouTube. Just search KFH. You'll find it. We'll be right there for you. We'll come back. More Sports Daily. We'll talk a little more Royals when we return.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Interesting pitching matchup tonight, Tommy, for the Royals, taking on the Twins. Dude named Simeon Woods Richardson. You may never have heard of. I have not.
You haven't heard of him before? He played for. He was a star for the Wind Surge for like a year.
Let me rephrase that. On a big league stage, I know
Okay.
who Simeon Woods Richardson is. I like Simeon Woods Richardson. I'm saying, like, as a general public, if you're watching the Twins, you're looking at it and you're like, Simeon Woods Richardson.
Okay.
Unless of course you pay attention to the Wind Surge. He's been really good. There have been a bunch of Wind Surge players, by the way, who have been really impactful, meaningful, good. Love it. But Richardson has been, outside of one start, Tommy, he has not allowed more than 2 runs in any start this season. He's not getting quite deep into these games, but he's no slouch, right? And we know the Twins are going to be there. So we look at this and it's like, okay, you've got Reagans on the mound, but Reagans is sneaky to the original point in a good pitching matchup tonight. I don't think you'd look at that, from a bird's eye view and you'd be like, all right, we got Reagans and we're going up Simeon Woods Richardson. Okay, young pitchers, probably no, he's been really good. So that, it adds a little pressure for the Royals this year. He's for this game tonight, he's been on, man. So this is no walk in the park tonight, I guess is my point, against the Twins. When you see a pitching matchup like that, the Twins are going to be there in the end of this thing. They're going to be pretty good this year. The Royals right now are on the road, slight favorites in this game, about as close to even money as you can get. So, Vegas agrees, even with Reagans on the mound, don't count out the Twins tonight behind a young pitcher. Former Wind Surge shout out. Appreciate you bringing that up, Tommy. But it's a good pitching matchup.
It's got to be frustrating for Woods Richardson. I'm going through and I'm looking at his game logs for the season, because when you look at his overall record and everything, 7 games started, his win-loss record is 1-0, and he's got a pretty low ERA. And I'm like, wait a second, were all the other 6 games no decisions? And yeah, after his very first start of the season where he went 6 innings and got the win at Detroit, after that, every single other game that he's pitched has been a no decision. So April 13th, that was the lone win that Woods Richardson has this year. But, other than one start, it would have been a couple of weeks ago against Cleveland on the road against the Guardians. He went this would have been against Toronto on May 11th. He went 4 1/3, gave up 5 runs on 8 hits. So not a great outing, but other than that, he's been pretty rock solid. I'm guessing he hasn't just gotten the run support, in a lot of those other games that he's pitched, because he has pitched really good. You take a first glance at his record, you're like, oh, he's 1-0, whatever, no big deal. He's been pretty solid this season. He just hasn't actually gotten the wins.
It is it is something that I love. Here's what's good. The problem with the win surge and the Twins, like I did not know before looking ahead to this series that he had been pitching that well this year. So yeah, frustrating's right, because he's not on the radar. He's been pitching really well despite, what is he, 1-0?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think that's all his record is.
Yeah,
so
1-0.
like
7 starts.
That's what's
6 no decisions.
That's what's crazy about that. And I'm so happy that he's good, but the challenge is they play in the same division as the Royals. So we're going to see these players graduate here from Wichita and then potentially terrorize the Royals if they're really good players. That's an interesting dynamic. Before scouting this series, really like earlier this morning, I didn't even know he was pitching that way. I mean, I didn't. Had you been paying attention to him at all before this series?
No, I mean, I obviously had been paying attention to his overall growth, and he was fun to watch when he was in Wichita. And clearly somebody that they felt like could be a big leaguer and be a solid pitcher at the major league level. He has been so far this year. Had a cup of coffee last year, I think, with the Twins. Didn't really do a ton. He started this season at AAA in St. Paul and has pitched, in their rotation since the middle of April. So I'm sure that for him, he's like, come on, guys, like when I'm on the hill, I need some run support. I need some help out there because I'm pitching well and I'm not giving up a bunch of runs. I need you guys to back me up a little bit. And so, that ERA is sub-3 in 7 starts, 35 innings pitched, 1 win. And not just 1 win, 1 decision out of 7 starts. So I'm sure for him, he's like, man, I need to actually get, some more wins on my record.
Yeah, it's and good. I don't think, honestly, like at 23 years old, I don't think he cares. He just wants to pitch well. Like you don't say anything to the offense when you're pitching well. You just pitch well.
Yeah, but I think it would be frustrating though when you get a win your very first outing in April, and then the next 6 you pitch pretty well or very well in all of them, and each one of them is a no decision. At some point, you're like, come on, like what more do I have to do here?
We'll see what he can do against Reagans tonight. I would say Reagans and Lugo feel like games the Royals really need to win. They really need to win these games. And then if not, the pressure is going to be on Singer, but you do not want the Twins to take 3 of 4 or worse in this series. You don't, because you don't want to at least head-to-head allow them back into this race that they're going to be back in by the end of the year. That first pitch tonight is at 6:40. And we'll have it for you right here on KFH or on the Odyssey app. I'm excited about it. I'm excited anytime Reagans and Lugo get up on the mound. They've just been fun to watch. But a good spot. Big-time baseball in late May. Sign me up. We'll come back. Again, thanks to Max for driving this ship for us today. Man in that IHOP hotline. Tom and I'll be back. We'll wrap up this show right after this.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. That'll do it for us. Just in time for pool season, Tommy. I just dropped a couch on my toe.
Oh, that's fun.
So may have a gnarly looking toenail. It's been a morning here. We appreciate you sticking with us here. Max, thanks. We may see you again tomorrow. We'll have lots to talk about. Mainly this Royal Series, man. We're going to be locked in. Cannot wait. You'll hear it tonight on KFH. You'll have regular Infinity Sports Network programming up until then. Bob and Jeff locally from 2 to 4. Glad to be back in the groove, everybody. Tomorrow's Wednesday, even though today feels like a Monday. We'll be back to do it all again. Albracht and Castor. See you then.